Shalom, Israel. Shalom. Mosan Yahweh Shah bless you all. Mosan Yahweh Shah bless you all. Shabbat Shalom to all Israel out there scattered abroad. Y'all tune in with another one that's Strong Tower Israelite School, the Read Along series. All right. Welcome to the Read Along series. Y'all know last week we had pretty much finished up in the book of Nehemiah. So if y'all want to catch catch those lessons and those read-alongs, make sure y'all just go through the history on the Facebook and the YouTube, and y'all can pretty much get caught up to everything that was brought out in those read-alongs. All right, I'm your host, Officer Ibsen, part of Strong Tower Israelite School, welcoming y'all to another one of these read-along series where we come together and we read the scriptures together. We study together, and just simply try to get through these scriptures from Genesis to Revelation together. I say this all the time. The purpose of this read-along series is for our people to come together and read, and to simply say that you have finished the Bible from Genesis and the Revelations. And if I can be an aid or a help in us accomplishing that goal, we're going to get through it. All right, so I've been doing this read-along series for a while now. You want to check out the history on that, go to our Strong Tower Israelite School YouTube page, and y'all can simply get caught up on everything that have been brought out in those read-alongs since the beginning that I started this series. All right, we're going to get into the book of Esther. Esther is one of these books that, it's a good story, a good part of our history that we get to learn about our foremother Esther and Mordecai, and also a little bit of history of the king during the time of the Medes and Persians. It's the history that we like to bring to simply to gain, for y'all to gain, to understand, and simply get the background history on what actually happened and how the Lord played a role in this backstory of Mordecai, Esther, and the king of the Medes and Persians. All right, so I always say, y'all get y'all Bibles out, get your highlighters out, get your notes out, because in these read-along series, I like to point out things that can be used for your studies. I may ask you to highlight certain things here and there that I think may be beneficial for your studies, and there's no telling what we may come across that can be beneficial to you, and also in this read-along series, you may see things that I may not see. So it's also beneficial for your personal studies also, that when you read along, you may find a precept for something that you already been studying on, so it's very important for you to be attentive and taking notes also when it comes to these read-along series. All right. First, I want to give all praise to the Most High, Yahweh, for allowing us to abide in His truth, to continue in this truth, and, to endure in this truth, even though we may face all types of trials and tribulations, whether in the land of our captivity or simply with things that we're dealing with personally. We want to always keep the Lord, Yahweh, and give Him out. We want to always thank the Lord, Yahweh, and give Him thanks, man, because we can be off into doing many other things outside of this truth. So the simple fact that you are abiding in this truth and the Lord have called you to this truth, to the awakening, you want to always give the Father praise for that. Also, we want to give the Father praise to His Son, Yahweh Shah, also for shedding His blood for the remissions of our sins, the children of Israel, so we can be able to abide in the mercy and grace upon the Yahweh Shah to actually get it right. When I say get it right, for us to overcome certain things that we may be battling, sins that we may be trying to shake through the blood of Yahweh Shai, and through through trial and error, and also simply through taking this conversion process seriously, we can overcome all things through the blood of Yahushua. We got the Son to stand before us now as the mediator of this new covenant that we're in, to present to be an atonement for the children of Israel, so we can buy it up on that mercy and grace and get ourselves right, which we couldn't do up on that old covenant, because if we committed sins, we was able to die. That was the judgment. But up on the Yahushua, man, we got mercy and grace, and a time to get it right before the Lord returns. So we thank the Father for sending His Son Yahushua to forgive our sins and to shed His blood for us. It's a very important task. So those are the things that we have to think about. We got to thank the Lord for His holy Sabbath, that is a day of rest, that we come together and we uphold and keep this day and be serious about this day, because we understand the importance of the Lord's Sabbath day. No buying, no selling, no working, no cooking, no cleaning. These are the things that we are not supposed to do on the Lord's Sabbath day. So we're supposed to keep these things, man, and make sure we are in proper alignment with the scriptures. All right. Got my brother here, Brother Eldad. You want to say anything, Eldad, before we get into it?
Man, shalom, happy Sabbath, man. Happy Sabbath as well.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom, brother, to my brother Eldad. We finna get to it. All right. So yeah, man, make sure everybody y'all understand the importance of keeping the Lord's Sabbath day, keeping it holy, man, because yes, this is a part of your salvation, is a law that we're supposed to keep. And it's like one of the very first laws that we got from the Lord, to keep His Sabbath day and to keep it holy, because the Lord has sanctified this day as a representation of the Lord creating the earth and the things in it in 6 days and resting on the seventh. So He pretty much sanctified that day, and He passed it along to us, the children of Israel, so that we keep that day and we honor that day. So if you can keep that day, keep this day, make sure you're doing everything in your power to keep the Lord's Sabbath day the correct way. All right. So with that being said, y'all, we're going to get straight. Oh, I forgot. Brothers and sisters, we also got this room being this read along series going live on Clubhouse. The room is called The Prodigals. Make sure y'all go to Clubhouse if y'all have one, and follow the room, The Prodigals. This is the place where I'll be having these read along series, and when we do classes, all these things will be recorded in the Clubhouse also. So make sure y'all follow the room and follow it. All right. So with that, we're going to get started. The book of Esther. All right. The book of Esther. Make sure y'all get y'all Bibles out, get your highlighters out, get your notebooks out for your studies, your pens, and we're going to dive in, man. All right. All right. This is the book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. The book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. It says, now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 120 provinces, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the third of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. Now we see what captivity that the children of Israel is in right now. We're in the captivity now of the Medes and Persians. If you was pretty much tuned in to the last read along series up on Nehemiah, you saw that the Medes and Persians came along and they took down Nehemiah in the kingdom of the Babylonians. All right. So make sure y'all understand the timeline, the captivities that the children of Israel went through. All right. So let's continue reading that verse. Let's read verse 2 again. Verse 3 again. It says, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes, the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. 180 days, so 180 days. All right. We understand that a score is 20. All right, so that's 180 days. It says, and when these days was expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white, and black and marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also, Vashti the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zathar, and Carcass, the seven chamberlains that serve in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti, the queen, before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So now we see that a scenario is about to play out. You got King Ahasuerus, who's married. He's in a good mood. Get married means he's in a good mood. He's feeling good. He got his company around him. Everybody's in a good mood. Now he's calling. It's like how any man would be. All right. Now he want to show off all the things of his kingdom. One being his queen in the crown royal. He's going to call her upon her, and he want to show her off her beauty. Look how beautiful my queen is. So he's in this quote unquote, he's feeling himself. All right. King Ahasuerus is feeling himself right now. All right. Verse 11, he says to bring Vashti, the queen, before the king with the crown royal, to show the people, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshena, Shathar, Admatha, Tarshish, Merez, Morzena, and Mamakan, the seven princes of the Persia and Media, which saw the king's face and which sat the first in the kingdom. Now, you gotta imagine this scenario. He got all these men of power surrounding him, and he made one commandment for the queen to be brought to him, but she refused. That brings shame upon that king, because he's like, man, listen, she's not listening to me or refusing to come and be obedient to the command that I made. Now these men observe and see this king's face. He's displeased. All right. Verse 15. It says, what shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she have not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. Now, and this also is something that a lot of our sisters have to keep in mind too. When you're dealing with a brother who sits in a, let's just say, a position of power, and he got men of leadership, you got men and sisters and men looking up to him, understand that you do not want to make a man like that look bad in public.
Right.
All right. A lot of sisters will do that, not understanding that the reason why you want to put you in the position that you're in now is because of the man that's over you. So you want to respect and be obedient to the man that's over you, not make him look bad or seem small in front of company. Never. All right. Let's read verse 15 again. It says, what shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she have not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Mama Khan answered before the king and the princess, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king of Ahasuerus. So they looking at it like, dang, bro, she not only brought shame to the king, but she making us look bad too. You know, our power dwindled when the king's power dwindled. All right, that's how they looking at it. Verse 17. For this deed to the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. See, that's what they was worried about. If one woman can do it, all other women will feel like they can do this also. All right. That's why I'm saying, sisters, if you are sin like in a place of, I don't like to pretty much label it as like a place of honor, but simply in the sight of your husband, and you bring shame to your husband and another sister see that, understand that you are set a terrible example for other sisters. You give them the pride or, the courage to do this to their husbands also,
Right.
seeing that you can pretty much get away with it. This is what these princes feared, that it will rub off on other women. All right. Shabbat Shalom to righteous Israel. Shabbat Shalom, sister. All right. Happy Sabbath. uh, Verse 17. It says, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti, the queen, to be brought in before him, but she came not. So she's keeping up this disobedience. All right. But she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both great and small. You see what they're trying to do now? Now they're trying to pass a law to set some type of order. All right, we got a woman, a queen who's in a higher position. She's leading a bad example. Let us pass this law that it can go out into all the provinces, so that when this law come across all these people in these different provinces, they'll understand the judgment that we made for Queen Vashti. That when all these other women see this judgment, now they'll fear their husband who's in high positions and low positions, bringing them honor. All right. So that is the example that they're going to pretty much make for Queen Vashti. All right. Verse 21. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Mamukan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear a rule in his own house. So they need to we need to pretty much dead this right now, so everything can be established in its proper order. Even the heathen understood that. You do not want to pretty much take the man out of his power position and make him look bad by a woman. Even they understood that. So that's not a new thing only in Israel. The heathen, they had, the Gentiles, the heathen, they had orders also for their household. The man is always established as the head. You don't want to make the head look bad nowhere. All right. Let's continue in verse 22. It says that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. All right. So we understand what just happened in chapter 1. The king Ahasuerus is having a feast where he invited all the people of high degree, and says to this, he said he was having a banquet, or what's the name? A feast. He invited all these high men of renown into this feast. And like I said before, King Ahasuerus was feeling himself. He's married, he's drinking wine, he's with a good company of people from his province, and he want to show his queen off to pretty much excel, get the glory and the merriness that he's in. So he's, like I said, he was feeling himself. So for whatever reason, it's not written in the scriptures, Queen Vashti didn't want to come. She refused. All right, so we understand that now. His wise men that he got around here, surrounded around, they saw the king's face and how displeased he was about Queen Vashti not following his commandment to come. All right, so they put things in order, passed this law that Queen Vashti should not appear before King Ahasuerus no more. and they're going to seek out a different queen to take her royal estate because she was disobedient. All right, and they sent their law
Right.
out through all the provinces, and also they pretty much did it because they wanted to establish throughout in all kingdom that every man should bear rule of his house. All right, that it would not rub
Mhm.
off on every other woman who saw the act of Queen Vashti. All right, so that is pretty much what happened in the summation of chapter one. All right, we're not highlighting. We really ain't. Well, if you saw anything in that that you wanted to highlight, you can. There's many things that people can highlight for their own study. Simply, like
Mhm.
I'll say in verse 20 and 21 and 23 to show you that that respect level still has to be there. That all the heathens they even understood that a man is the head of his household and he bear rule over his wife or simply over the queen. So
Right.
if you want to highlight that, for example, that'll be a good thing to highlight it. And it's also good for you to show that as an example to our sisters who may be in the truth to show you that the power that your head have over you, he can actually sit you down, or he can pretty much seek out other righteous ways to handle certain situations when sisters get beside themselves. All right, all right,
Right.
you will that.
All right. This is the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins of Shushan, the place to the palace, to the house of the woman, unto the custody of Higi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the place there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his
Right.
own
Okay.
daughter.
So verse
So it came to pass. Go ahead.
you want to highlight verse 5, verse
Mhm.
5, and you want to highlight verse 7. Why? Because it shows you what lineage Mordecai and Esther come from. They are Benjamites. All right, they are Benjamites. So that is something important to know. If anybody want to know what tribe Esther or Mordecai come from, they come from the tribe of Benjamin. All right. And you also want to highlight verse 7 because it shows you that Esther's name was changed. Her name wasn't originally Esther, it was Hadassah. All right. There's another name for
Mhm.
Esther, which is Hadassah. All right. All right. So that is another thing that you may want to highlight. All right.
All right. All right. Verse 8, the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 8. So it came to pass when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shoshan, the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the woman, and the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meant to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of the woman. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the woman's house to know how Esther did and what should come of her. Verse 12. Now, when every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of women. For so were the days of their purification accomplished, to to wit, 6 months for oil of mirth, and 6 months of sweet odors, and other things, and the purification and the
So
purifying
King
of the
Ahaz,
woman.
so King
Then
Ahasuerus
thus
made sure these women was clean as possible. 12 months. Purification just simply mean that was the process they went through for cleaning. All right, to cleanse themselves. All right, so he required 12 months of purification so they can be allowed to go in before the king. All right, so you see that you're dealing with a king of cleanliness. He like his women presented a certain type of way. All right, smelling good, for example. All right.
All right, verse 12. Now, when every maid's turn was, or we're, okay, yeah, we were at the end of verse 12. To wix, 6 months of oil of mirth, and 6 months of sweet odors, and with other things, for the purifying of the women. Verse 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the woman unto the king's house. And in the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaash Gaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Hegai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the woman, appointed, and Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen of Vashti. Queen
And you
instead
gotta
of
imagine
Vashti.
that, man. You know, you got, you know how the mindset of women is. You know, when they probably see Esther getting all that attention and all that favor, there's no telling how them other women feeling,
Mhm.
especially the women who was of his provinces, of his nation. That's another thing. He's picking a woman to
Right.
be queen of another nation, which is Israel. So if you got women who's pretty much been
Mhm.
chose, who's of the king's nation, you know they feeling some type of way. You know,
Mhm.
so
Right. And I also noticed, even with her being a beautiful woman, like all the people loved her, meaning that she was good
mhm.
with people. She wasn't like a lot of very beautiful women, which are
Right.
high maintenance, and need a lot of things and need everybody to be focused on them. It looks like she was not only a beautiful woman outside, but inside, because she got the love of the people and the people that were
Right.
even serving her.
Right.
Everybody loved
Like you
her.
said,
So
it wasn't simply just
definitely.
based on beauty. Even though the scripture said that she was a beautiful woman, it's more complex when it comes to dealing with men. Even though it's not written, she may have like a soft speech. She may have like a good mind to her. You know, she probably was more, and also had to
Right.
mean that she was way more obedient than Vashti. You know, so it's a lot of things that
Mhm.
you can take in that will cause her to be more favored than every other woman that was chosen in that province. All right.
Right. Right. All right, so we're verse
Oh, 18.
16, 18. Okay. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. and made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. Verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof in
And that's
Mordecai's
very
name.
that's very
And when
important. That's very important for something for us to take in too. Mordecai, like it says that
yeah,
Mordecai taught Esther. She followed Mordecai's commandment because Mordecai brought her up. Showed you that Mordecai was keeping the commandments of the Lord. That's how she was brought up. And an example of that is when
right,
Mordecai saw evil coming up on the king of Ahasuerus, he uttered it to the queen so that she can tell or warn King Ahasuerus of it. That goes back into the law of Leviticus 5
mhm,
and 1. If you still sow sin and you utter it not,
right,
you're going to bear that iniquity. That is the commandment that Mordecai kept, whether it was coming from our people or it was coming from the captivity that he was in. He still understood that wickedness was wickedness and he uttered it. All right.
right. Verse 23. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in a book of the Chronicles before
Right.
the
So
king.
judgment came upon those two men immediately because Mordecai uttered, which was what he already knew about to Queen Esther, and Esther let the king know, and they got judged for that. All right. So that's very important for us to understand. Keep the commandments. That's why the Lord says that he will make our enemies to be at peace with us. If we're doing the right thing and we're keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, we can have our enemies. When I say our enemies, the heathen, they'll look out for us in certain instances, which we're gonna see that as we continue to read Mordecai's account or his storyline about Mordecai in the book of Esther. All right, because he's gonna receive a benefit from that. All right, okay. So what did we get from chapter 2, Eldad?
For so far, he sought for a new wife after Vashti did what she did, and Esther was chosen. She went through a purification
Mm-hmm.
process. She was liked by everyone that dealt with her. Um, there was a situation that
Right.
arose, and Mordecai heard about some men trying to kill the king, and he was able to warn the queen, and she was able to, um, they were able to get that situation taken care of. So that's kind of what happened here in
Okay.
chapter
Okay.
two.
Good. Pretty much a good summary of what happened in chapter 2. Let's get into chapter 3. This is the book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman. For the king had so commanded, and for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressed thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. Now we see that Mordecai is still keeping the commandments, because that goes into the law where the Lord says that we don't supposed to bow. Let me see if I can find the commandment. I think it's in Exodus. Give me a minute. Let me see if it's. Let me go check on it. All right.
First is the thunder.
Okay, JB, bear with me, y'all. Yeah, Exodus chapter 20. We're gonna read verse 4. All right. Well, yeah, verse 4. It says, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 4. It says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I am the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So Mordecai understood that. Like, if I bow down to this man, I'm putting this man in a position of an idol. I can't do that. That's why he told him that he was a Jew. All right. That means when he said he was a Jew, that means that he was keeping the laws of the God, the laws of the Lord. All right. So he wasn't finna bow down to Haman. No matter, no, not even caring what King Ahasuerus had commanded for them to do. He wasn't finna bow down to him. All right, showing you that he was upholding the laws of the Lord. All right. So let's go back to Ezra chapter 3, verse 4. It says, now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him. Oh, I'm sorry, let's read verse 3 again. It says, then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. So, like I said before, y'all want to highlight verse 3 and 4 because it shows you that Mordecai was keeping the commandments of the Lord. You know, also you want to highlight what we brought out about. I'm sorry, I should have told y'all to highlight this also in the previous chapter, chapter 2, when Mordecai ordered the thing that was going to happen to the king, and he pretty much delivered the king out of that situation because he understood the laws concerning Leviticus 5. If you hear a soul sin or the voice of swearing, and you utter it not. So you want to highlight Esther's chapter 2, verse 20 through 23, and also you want to highlight Esther's chapter 3, verse 1 through let's just say verse 5, because those verses correlate with the laws of the Lord, showing you that Mordecai was keeping the law. All right, so let's read verse 5 again. It says, this is the book of Ezra chapter 3 verse 5. It says, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. So y'all want to highlight verse 7 because they cast pur is going to correlate with a feast day that we celebrate to this day. All right, so I'm going to read that again in verse 7. It says, in the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Dar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's prophet to suffer them. Suffer means to go to allow them to keep their laws. All right, so Haman understood that the Jews, the children of Israel that were dispersed, they wasn't keeping the commandments of the king. They was keeping the laws of the Lord. Showing you, there's another scripture to show people that we keep the land, we can keep the law in the land of our captivity. All right, because that's a doctrine and it's like to teach that we can't keep the laws in the land of our captivity to be in Jerusalem. No, it's just proved that
Right.
right here in this scripture that our people was keeping the laws in the land of their captivity in the under the Medes and Persians. All right, so you want to highlight that scripture as a precept for you can be able to prove that. All right, so also in I'm sorry, it's another precept that you can use right here for verse 8. It's in when I think that's in Matthew where the Lord was talking to the people and they asked the Lord, it says, where will the Lord go? Will he go to the dispersed? So let me pull that up right quick. This is one of the precepts that you can use for dispersed also to let you know who they was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go. I'm sorry, I said Matthew. That's in John. All right, let's go to the book of John, chapter 7. And I'm gonna bring this out for a precept also. John chapter 7. We're going to go to the book of John chapter 7. And we're going to go to verse 35. It says, 35. It says, then said the Jews among them, let me just read verse 34. Well, 33. This is the book of John, chapter 7, verse 33. It says, then said Yahushua unto them, yet a little while am I with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles? Only the children of Israel were dispersed among the Gentiles. That's what they're saying. Is that
Yeah.
where he's going to go? He's not. They're not talking about the other nations. And also it says, and teach the
Mm-hmm.
Gentiles. Why it says, and teach the Gentiles? Because those dispersed among the Gentiles was being recognized as Gentiles. That's why he said that. So that's another precept that you can use to show you that the dispersed is talking about our people who was dispersed amongst these other nations who was in the land of our captivity. All right. So let's go back to the book of Esther, and we're going to read chapter 3 and verse 8 again. All right. It says, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemed good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenant, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is even on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out being hasted. The post went out being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. So we see what's going on in chapter 3. Pretty much just because
Mm-hmm.
Mordecai did not want to obey the commandment of the king, meaning bowing down to Haman in his presence because he was keeping the laws, a decree went out. Haman understood. He convinced the king that, look, man, you got these Jews dwelling amongst in your province. They don't keep your commandments like you saying. They uphold their laws. That's what he's putting in the king's ear.
Right.
They not doing what you say, O King Ahasuerus. We need to do something about this. So he convinced the king Ahasuerus to pretty much like, you know what? Well, he told Haman convinced the king Ahasuerus, like, listen, we need to pretty much put these people to death who's not obeying your commandment, and we're going to do it on the 13th day of the 12th month in the month of Dar. That's what it's going to be carried out at. So the king, like, you know what? They not listening to my commandment, my ring. I'm all trying to make it all, I'm trying to make the picture broad for our people to paint the image. So the king, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Here's my ring. You know what you sound. It sounds good. They not obeying my commandment. I'm gonna seal it with my ring. Meaning a signet of a king is simply like the approval of the king who's sending off the message. So his ring
Right.
was the signet. I'm gonna
Right.
signify this that okay, I'm ordaining this, and it's gonna go out through all the provinces by the post. That's what he did. So that's pretty much what the kingdom is facing right now. That's why I said while Haman and King sat down to drink, the city was Shushan was perplexed because you got the people going crazy in the kingdom. Meaning we can see people on the other side like, dang, we get this much money if we kill these Jews, so they happy about it. But the Jews who's dwelling in these
Right.
provinces, we scared. Like, dang, we can't keep the laws or we gonna die. All right. So
Right.
that's what was pretty much going on in chapter 3. All right.
Right. All right. Chapter 4, Esther, chapter 4, verse 1. When Mordecai received all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate. For none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whitherso the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and lay in sackcloth and ashes. And so Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to cloth Mordecai, and take away his sackcloth from him. But he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, who he had appointed to attend upon her. He gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hatak um, went forth to Mordecai unto the streets of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasury for the Jews to destroy them. And he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and charged her so that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make requests her people, before him for her people. And Hattach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hattach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai, all the king's servants and all the people of the king's provinces, do know that whatsoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to the king shall hold out the golden scepter that they may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the kings these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded an answer to Esther. Think not thy Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
See, Mordecai trying to put Esther in remembrance of who she are and who she is and where she come from.
Right.
And also you got to put yourself in Esther's shoes. Also, she's simply just trying to obey the commandment or the position that she's in that came from the king. So she's not wrong in what she's saying. She's just like, listen, you haven't been called to come
Right.
to the king these 30 days. It's one law
Mm-hmm.
given. Like whoever comes to the king, meaning if he didn't call you, he gonna put you to death, except he hold that golden scepter out. So she simply was just trying to give
Right.
Mordecai what has been told her coming from the king. And but Mordecai ain't trying to hear that. Mordecai like, man, listen, this man on sent a letter out saying he gonna kill us, your people. Don't think you're gonna escape this
Mm-hmm.
judgment just because you up in that council. So that's what he's telling Esther, just trying
Right.
to put her in remembrance of where she come
Exactly.
from, and to do something about the decree
Mm-hmm.
that went out. All right.
Mm-hmm. Verse 14. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time
Right.
as
You see, now
this?
he's putting her in a position like you don't know. He's like, listen, well, let me just scan through it. He says, for if thou altogether hold thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. So he's put her in the mindset like, if you simply don't do nothing, the Lord is going to bring up somebody else up who's going to deliver the Jews out of this situation. But thou and thy father's
Right.
house shall be destroyed, simply because you didn't want to deliver your own people. You and your father's house is going to be destroyed. I mean, the Lord is going to deal with you. All right. And he says, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Meaning you don't know why you was put in this position. The Lord can be sending you up as the queen of the Medes and Persians or to King Ahasuerus for you to deliver your own people out of this situation that we currently are facing. So he's trying to put her
Mm-hmm.
in the right mindset to simply deliver her people. All right.
Right. Okay. All right. And verse 15. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, nor night nor day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I
See
perish,
the
I
decision that she
perish.
made? She like, man, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do what I'm supposed to do. If I die, I die. But y'all fast for me and y'all pray for me. Fasting and praying is simply her saying, like, listen, y'all send prayers up to me to hopefully get an answer from the Lord or to simply deliver me out of a hard situation. That's why she want them to pray for her, because she don't know what's going to happen. So
Right.
if she got the Jews praying
Mhm.
on their side, fasting and praying for her deliverance out of this situation or to make the right decision, that's what she's asking for. But she said, if I perish, I
Right.
perish. Meaning at the end of the day, I'm helping my
Hmm.
people. And that's the mindset that all people have to have also in the position that we're in today. If you sit in high places
Right.
in this in the land of all captivity, and it comes an opportunity for you to look out for your people, to help them, to deliver them out of certain situations, you're
Hmm.
supposed to help. You're supposed to help.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
our people don't have that
Right.
mindset today. They only look out for their best interest. They would have took the latter end. They're like, you know what, man, I don't care about none of that, Mordecai. I'm gonna save myself. A lot of our people have that I'm gonna save myself mentality, and they don't understand with that mentality, there's no way you're gonna get the kingdom because at the end of the day, the Lord put you in the position
Hmm.
that you're in. You didn't do it yourself. You
Right.
may have put the work in, but the Lord put
Right.
it in you to put the work in to get in the position that you're in. So if the Lord bless you, you bless your
Mhm.
people. You don't turn your back on your people, all right? For nobody. All right.
Right.
All right. So let's keep going. This is the book of Esther. I mean, chapters in here. It's not, it's actually like a short book. All right, this is the book of Esther, chapter
Mhm.
5, verse 1. It says, Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. Now that's how you know that the Lord be pretty much working through these kings, man. The Lord controls every single thing for the betterment of his people, you know. So the Lord gave
God.
Esther a favor in the sight of the king. She the queen anyway. He's not gonna put the queen to death, even though that's his law. But the
Mhm.
Lord pretty much changed the heart of the king to have favor in the sight of Esther to allow her to come in. And that simply the reason to
Right.
prove that the Lord controls these kings because you got to go back into when the Lord was delivering us out of the land of Egypt, and the Lord kept saying that I'm the one that hardened the heart of Pharaoh. I mean, the Lord can change these kings'
Mhm.
hearts to do whatever He desires. He can soften them up. He can harden them.
Right.
He can soften them up. He can harden them because He the one who determines who rule and who's pretty much brought low. That is the Lord doing. All right.
Mhm.
So let's continue to read. Verse 3. It's the book of Esther, chapter 5, verse 3. It says, Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him. He was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, Yeah, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting in the king's gate. Then said Zeresh his wife, and all his friends unto him, Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet, and the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Wow. See, now we see that everything is simply taking its course. The king
Mhm.
granted Esther mercy to come and appear before her in the court. He want to know what Esther's petition and her request is, and she's simply saying, bring Haman. You and Haman come to the banquet that I have prepared for Haman or for the king. And she said, I'm gonna let you know then. Now we jump to Haman. Haman simply going about his merry life. He's joyful. He got the honor and he got the glory. He's happy that he's been invited to the banquet by Esther and the king. Now the only thing that's
Mhm.
pretty much make him feel some type of way that everybody is glorifying Haman, but he see Mordecai. Mordecai ain't going for it. I'm not bowing down when I see you, brother. I'm just not doing it. So he like, you know what? Mordecai is the only one that's in the way. He go back, he vent these things to his friends and his wife that's at the house. They're like, you know what, man, you need to build a gallows. If you feel some type of way, build a gallows 50 cubits high and have him hang thereon. And Haman, you know, he's standing like, you know what, that sounds good. He made it happen. That's chapter 5 in a nutshell. All right. So we finna see how this is going to play out. All right.
Right. Uh, Chapter 6. On that night, could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found that Mordecai had told Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house, and to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai, the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servants said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. And Haman came in. And the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king
See, you
delighteth
got
to
to understand
honor.
when you read
And
between
the
the
king,
lines of verse 8 and 9, he said, let the royal apparel be
Mhm.
brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rideth
Right,
upon, and the crown royal will
right,
sit upon his head. If you read between the line who Haman was, he'll show you how he's a snake because everything that he wanted belonged to the king. That's the king's attire. That's the
right.
king's horse. That's the king crown. Showing you a matter
Mhm,
of fact that he would have
mhm,
tried to take the kingdom from the king because he already want what the king have.
mhm.
And he said pretty much
Right.
let the apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man
Mhm.
with whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus
Right.
shall it be done to the man. See, he want everything that comes with being the king. He want the honor. He want to wear
Right.
what the king wear. He want his crown. He want his
Mhm.
horse. So you have to watch men like Haman, you know, because it wasn't something
Right.
that he simply wanted the king to give outside of what he already have. He wanted what the king had.
Mhm.
All right.
Right.
Oh
What
yeah,
verse
but
were
we're
we at
going to verse
again?
10.
Sorry, verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse that thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai, the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fall of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse that and arrayed Mordecai and brought him on horseback through the street of the city and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king
You
delighteth
know
to
Mordecai.
honor.
Well, he was Haman was all the way sick. He probably was sick to his stomach. He was so hurt that he had to do that because he said he thought who in verse 6 he said Haman thought to his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? So he's like, man, I'm saying
Right.
all this because
Right.
I think it's gonna be me that's on who's gonna get all this stuff. But the person
Exactly.
that he hate and trying to get killed, it ended up being him to get all this honor.
Mhm.
That man's sick to his stomach right now. You know?
Right. 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 Verse 12. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shall surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had
Man, it's
prepared.
so man, that's crazy because Mordecai, I mean not Mordecai, but he up and why the scripture started that he was joyful and everything in the beginning, and everything just taking a turn for the worse. Everything is taking a
Right.
turn for the worse. Man, it's very true when they say you can be up one minute, then you can be down the next. That's how the Lord worked. And all it
Mhm.
came because of Haman's pride. He was prideful. All right. He want what the king
Right.
have. He pretty
Right.
much seeing Mordecai as an enemy. He want the glory. The Lord saw how prideful Haman
Hmm.
was, and he about to bring him all the way down to the ground. All right.
Right.
And
Right.
that's it's crazy, man. It's very crazy. That's why we have to be mindful of the way that we are in certain situations. If it's not that you don't want pride on you at all, honestly, because pride can lead you to do some of the most dangerous stuff, and you don't even understand that you're doing it because you being prideful. And it's only pretty much if
Right.
you can't be corrected, now the Lord got to deal with you and bring you very low because you don't see the signs that you're being too prideful in the moment. You know, so you got to be
Right.
mindful of that.
Right.
That's why the scripture says, it says, pride go up before the destruction. Or it said, I think that what it is.
Hmm.
For
Pride
yeah,
come before the fall.
pride go up before the fall. You know,
Hmm.
so you operate in the spirit of pride, you gonna fall if you don't get it together. Nah. All
Right.
right, let's keep it going. This is the book of Esther, chapter 7, verse 1. It says, so the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Verse 5. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. Oh, brother just dropped off. We're going to continue to read until the brother come back. All right. Verse 7. It says, and the king arising from the banquet. Yeah, let me keep my eye on that till you come back. All right, verse 7, it says, and the king arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. So he's scared now. Like anybody will be scared. Man, everything is befalling me in a minute. Everything is befalling me in a minute, man. Let me look at something right quick. Give me a minute, y'all. All right. Let's continue to read in verse 8. I think I was just saying that, yeah, he's pretty much pleading for his life right now because everything is catching up to him. And that got to be a scary feeling to be, that got to be a scary experience. You know, when you coming from a high position, now you being brought very low and all eyes is on you because of the wickedness that you pretty much doing. All right, that's why a lot of people that's why a lot of people tend to hide their wickedness, man. You know, you got a lot of people in high positions that dwelling in wickedness, they tend to hide their wickedness or try to get away from it because they know they don't want to be exposed. If you got a person who's pretty much being looked up to by a lot of people and they think that this person can't do no wrong and they know themselves that they are doing wrong, they are going to try to hide that wickedness. Why? Because they don't want to be brought to shame or they don't want anybody looking at them in the wrong light. You know, so you have to examine people like that, and people like that typically be like hypocrites. The Lord don't like hypocrites, man. At the end of the day, you want to humble yourself in the sight of your people. If you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. It's even stronger if you can admit your faults and people can see that you have errors. But if you think you're just going around and you just righteous all the time and you can do no wrong, but you know when the Lord know that you wicked behind the scenes, you're going to eventually be exposed for your wrongdoing. All right? Everything comes to the light. All right, verse 7. I'm sorry, yeah, let's go into verse 8. It says, Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed wherein Esther was. Then said the king, hold on, let me read it again. Verse 8, it says, Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the palace of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed wherein Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. So he like, dang, this man trying to get with Esther in my house. I mean, like he's gonna try to force her. Force means to like rape. He thought that Haman was trying to pretty much force Esther. All right, so the king's mind is simply heated. He looking at Haman in the worst image now, in the worst way possible. All right. Verse 9, it says, And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. He saw everything went into reverse. The gallows that he thought that the king was going to grant for him to hang Mordecai on, pretty much being his death. That's how the Lord worked. That's how the Lord worked. You know, so you got to examine how you are in this truth, or the Lord can pretty much work to be your enemy. All right. He's not saying that the Lord was on Haman's side or nothing like that, but the simple fact is that the Lord simply rewarded Haman for his evil. All right, because ultimately it was just simply the Lord doing his purpose to deliver the children of Israel out of that situation. Ultimately, that's why Esther was put in that position to deliver the children of Israel. So the Lord wiped that slate all the way clean. All right. So let's continue to go. You know, I think we're gonna read all the way through Esther because it's a pretty short book. All right, this is the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 1. It says, And on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears. I'm sorry, let me read that again. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that have hanged, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it like of you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. Verse 10. Oh, wait a minute. You came back yet? I ain't even see. How long you been back, Eldad?
Just for a second, I'm reading with you. I had to change location.
Verse 10. It says, and he wrote in the king's Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, to take the spoil of them for a prey. You got to think about that, because when that decree went out, you probably had all those people outside the Jews waiting for that day, rubbing their hands like, yeah, we're gonna get y'all. We're gonna get y'all. So on the contrary, when you got a new law being passed, it's gonna be the total opposite. Now you got us, the Jews, we like, yeah, we're gonna get y'all now. We're gonna get y'all because this new law is coming out. Now you got all these other people scared. They're gonna be terrified. All right. Verse 12. It says, upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus' name, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the post that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hasted and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the kings, and Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. So like I said before, a lot of those people, they were scared. They became converts. They wanted to become, meaning they became Jews. They started pretty much trying to become Jews, meaning learning all laws, statutes, and commandments, trying to be up on our rulership now, because they understood that when that 13th day of that 12th month of Adar came, it was over with for them. So you had a lot of them trying to put themselves in favor with our people, the Jews. All right. So now in chapter 8, we saw a whole reversal. Haman got put to death. All right. Hung on the gallows. He got exposed. And now we see another decree going out up under the hand of Mordecai and Esther for the reverse the law that Haman tried to pass from the king. So
Right.
what Haman and the people were trying to do to the Jews, it got reversed, and now the Jews is going to do it unto them. All right, that's what we saw in chapter 8. Got anything you want to say of that?
No, sir. Sounds good.
All right, we're going into chapter 9.
All right. The book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 1. Now, in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people.
Mm,
And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon
mm,
them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all the enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughtered and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated
mm,
them. And in Shushan, the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshan Datha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Ardatha, and Parmashta, and Arisia, and Aridia, and Verjezatha, and the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hamaditha, and the enemies of the Jews slew they. But on the spoil, but on the spoil laid they not their
mm,
hand. On the day the number of those that were slain in Shushan, the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan, the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman, which have they done what have done in the rest of the king's. Now
mm.
what is thy petition? And it shall be granted of thee. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Verse 13. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which were in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the
So Esther, like,
gallows.
nah, we need to
And the
double
king,
down on it again for another day. And this time we need to kill
right,
Haman's 10 sons and hang them on the gallows. So she wanted to double down on it. All right.
right, she was about that. Verse 14. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan. And they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hands.
Mm,
But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on the
mm,
prey. And the third and on the 13th day of the month of Adar, on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. And the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, a good day, and of sending portions one to
Mhm.
another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning to a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun. And as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them.
Right. So now we see in verse 21 and 22 we have a feast day that was pretty much established.
Get my water
All
real
right, you
quick.
good. We had a feast day that was established off of this history. It says to establish this among them that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, in the month which was returned unto them from sorrow to joy and from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. All right. So we see that with this feast day that we supposed to celebrate, we supposed to do some things on this feast day. It's supposed to be a day of feasting and gladness. And this is the feast day that we also supposed to send portions one to another and gifts to the poor. All right. So you can give gifts to
Right,
each other and give portions to each other, and you're supposed to give gifts to the poor. That is a commandment for this feast day. All right. And we're going to later understand what is this feast day talking about. All right. That's why I said in earlier in the scripture where it talks about casting pur. That was a hint. That's why I said highlight that. And in verse 24, it said it again because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them and had cast pur. All right. That
right.
is the lot to consume them and to destroy them. All right.
So, all right. In verse 25, but when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, but after the name of
Right. So we
Pur.
see now what feast
Therefore,
day is talking about. It's talking about the feast day of Purim, which derives from the word Pur means to cast lots. It's all derived from what Haran, what his name Haman decided that he wanted to do to the children of Israel, which actually got reversed when Mordecai and Esther wrote the law reversing his actions. And as a result, they pretty much established these feast days, which is the Feast of Purim, on the 14th and 15th day of the month of Adar. All right, that's when we celebrate the Feast of Purim per the book of Esther. All right, so we pretty much got the history of how the Feast of Purim came into play and the history behind it. All right, it means to cast lots.
verse 26, wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of all that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them to perish from their
Now,
seed.
verse 28 is very important. You all right? Verse 28 is very
Con,
important. It says, "And these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation." It don't matter where you dwelling at, every generation. That's why we established upon the Mede and Persian captivity, when it was going down, the Jews was keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. That's why Mordecai knew to pretty much bring out what to do about Leviticus 5 and 1 when he saw the threat against the king. And also it was another one. What did I say? That I brought another law on. Uh, it's not coming to me right now.
when Mordecai wouldn't bow down to Haman, you talking about
Right,
Exodus?
exactly, right. We're correct. Yeah, when Mordecai went bow down to Haman, he understood the law about not idolizing and not bowing down to men and idolatry. He understood the law. Show you that we was keeping the law, statutes, and commandments in the land of our captivity. So it shouldn't be no brother or sister saying he can't keep the law, statutes, and commandments in the land of our captivity, because we have an example of Mordecai and Esther doing it. All right. So verse 28 is important because we're supposed to keep this feast of Purim from generation to generation. It says, these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province. Every province means wherever you dwell in that. Is a province is simply a part of a kingdom. That means we're dwelling right over here now in America, aka Babylon the Great. This place has provinces, meaning different states that make up the land of America. So wherever you're dwelling at, you're supposed to keep the feast of Purim. All right. We don't have to be in the land of Jerusalem to keep the laws of the Lord. All right. It says in every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. So we're supposed to keep this day, and we're supposed to remember it and honor it because it's a memorial. All right. All right. Let's go.
Verse 29. And Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim and their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoyed them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matter of their fasting and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was
And
written
that's also,
in
you
the
want to
book.
highlight verse 32. Also, I got to start saying this. Y'all want to highlight verse, uh, what is that? Esther's chapter 9, where simply verse 21 and 22, you can highlight more, but I want y'all to highlight the Feast of Purim because that shows you what we're supposed to do on the Feast of Purim and the day that we celebrate it.
Right.
Also, I want you to highlight verse 28 because it shows you that we're supposed to be keeping the Feast of Purim throughout generation and a memorial. So that's what we're supposed to be doing. You want to highlight that also. Also, you want to highlight verse 32. It says, "And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim." Where? And it is written in the book.
Right.
What book? We're reading it right now. That's how she confirmed, because this is the record of the Purim, what we're supposed to keep. So this is another scripture that you want to highlight, showing you that Esther verifies herself, because it says that it was written in the book of Esther, what we're reading right now. So y'all want to highlight those things, man. It's
Right.
good for your studies. All right. So let's finish up this last chapter. This is the book of Esther, chapter 10, verse 1. It says, "And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of the Media and Persia? If you can find that history of the Chronicles of the Media and Persia, that's another thing that will verify the existence of Mordecai. All right. So that's
Right.
something else that you want to highlight, because the history is out there. I had this false reality that the Bible is a made up book, but no, when you got the Chronicles and you got books like these, is they are also verified through the records and the history of the heathen. They keep their own records too. So if any brother and sister can find that record, you will find Mordecai in there. All right. So let's
Right.
read verse 2 again. It says, "In all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed." Verse 3 is important too, because it says that for Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, meaning like he had a high position in King Ahasuerus' kingdom. He sat right next to the king. So he was a man of very importance. This book of Esther is not only about Esther. Mordecai played a huge role in the success of Esther. He
Right.
put her in the position that she was in. So you got to give honor where honor is due. All right. That's why the Lord put him in his rightful position in the end. He was right next to the king. All right.
Right.
Verse 3. Let's read that again. It says, "And great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people." All people got to get out of the mindset of being selfish when they get in positions of power. You're supposed to seek the wealth of your people. Put your people in position so that they can win too. It's not only about you. All right. Now our people
Right.
understood that. That's why he had to put Esther in remembrance of who she was, so she could seek the wealth of her people and deliver them out of the situation that she was in. Now, when Mordecai get in the position that he's in, he's going to seek the wealth of his people too. That's how that works. When the Lord bless you and he put you in high positions amongst our enemies, make sure you bless your people and you uplift your people. That is something that is done as a collective. All right. It says, seeking the wealth of his people and speaking peace to all his seed. All right. That is it, y'all. That is the book of Esther. There was a short book, so we went all the way through that. And it pretty much put us right at the
Right.
time where I like to end these read along series a little bit over, all 130, but that's all right. We got through the book of Esther. All right. So hope brothers and sisters learn something from this read along series. Make sure y'all continue to tune into it. If y'all have any questions, y'all can reach out to us on Facebook, Strong Tower Israelite School, YouTube, Strong Tower Israelite School, and we'll answer y'all questions to the best of our ability. Brothers and sisters who are tuned in on Clubhouse, if y'all had anything to say, y'all could have left a comment. I know a brother reached out, Yarash. He was like a great class king. Appreciate that, Yarash. Brothers want to contribute to the read along series, feel more than welcome. And sisters also feel y'all are more than welcome. All right. So, that's the book of Esther. You got anything that you want to say, Eldad?
Oh man, one more week closer to the kingdom. Happy Sabbath to you and your family and Israel and the elder and the Lord's will. Great
Right.
class
All
tomorrow.
right. Shabbat shalom to all Israel out there. We're gonna see y'all again tomorrow for the Sabbath class. Make sure y'all tuned in, and we're gonna try to bring something good to y'all, man, that can edify y'all and further your learning in this truth. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna shut it down. I'm Officer Ives, and thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time. All right. Shabbat shalom.